Hello, everyone, and welcome to Itis Week. We are talking about all things inflammation this week. And my dear friend, Dr. Nick Thompson from across the pond, has been kind enough to agree to come on and talk about pancreatitis. Hi,
Judy,
Nick.
how are you? It's great to see you again.
Yeah, we haven't done anything together for a few months. Where have you been hiding?
No.
I think I've been on the road.
Yeah. Because you came over to the UK at the beginning of the year, and you toured Scotland. And
I did. It was so much fun. We had a blast, but unfortunately, we didn't get to meet you. I met Connor in person, and I don't know if you heard, but I was completely shocked because I had no idea he's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Yes, that's when he bends over. He's 7 feet tall.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think he's maybe a little bit.
I saw him sitting in the bar, and I walked in, and he stood up, and I was just like,
Yeah, you know what? I think he's half Irish, maybe half Sasquatch.
There you go.
he's like this, yeah, but what a lovely guy. So gentle and so knowledgeable. And, his delivery and his writing is fantastic. So he's a great addition to the movement, to the raw food movement. It's great.
Absolutely.
And we work together every week. We do Raw Pet Medics, and everybody's welcome to that. It's a free Facebook Live. Jump in. You're really, really welcome.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great group. And that's why we host you guys on our platform every Tuesday at 2 p.m. here on the East Coast.
You do.
Yeah. So we're trying to spread the word because you guys talk about fun stuff, and you're just all fun.
What I say to people is that we think serious topics, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Well, there you go.
That's the bottom line, which I think is pretty healthy.
I think it is. All right. So today we're going to address the serious topic of pancreatitis, which I don't know about you. I'm not even in practice anymore. And I think every single day there's at least one email in my inbox about pancreatitis attacks. And when I do consultations, that's such a common complaint and topic. And on social media, I mean, all you got to do is scroll through a couple of healthy pet websites, and it's always going to come up as a topic. So do you have just as much trouble over there?
Oh, totally. I'll tell you a story. When I was in practice, I was in conventional practice for 7 years. Okay. And in that 7 years, I saw one confirmed case of pancreatitis. And let's face it, pancreatitis, I mean, chronic pancreatitis can be kind of niggly, but you usually get there in the end. But I saw one case in 7 years. Now I talk about, or I hear about cases once a week, twice a week, like you. It's ubiquitous, but I've got some data to share with everybody.
Awesome.
And to be honest, when you look at the stats, it's a wonder that every dog is not pancreatitic. Yeah, it's a wonder that every single dog in the States, in Europe, isn't walking around with a bulging pancreas, because the causes, the list of causes is as long as your arm. And I'd love to share that with you just now.
Great.
Judy. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So is that good? Is that you lighting the blue touch paper? Yeah. That's what we say with over here. On fireworks, you light the thing and it then goes up in the air. Over here, those are blue touch papers. Yeah. And so you light that and then the rocket goes.
Got it.
So, okay, so that's you lighting the blue touch paper. So I'm going to just introduce, please jump in, because otherwise I'm going to give you just a non-stop monologue for hours. Okay, so please jump in. I'd like to hear about your experiences in the States, okay? Because it'd be really interesting to see if you've got greater incidence, lesser incidence, certain drugs, certain situations, and what have you. So please jump in. I'm just going to free associate on on pancreatitis. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. If we go back to the beginning, Penny Watson, when she was at Glasgow, she did some work and she took 200 dogs. Okay. It was a sequence of dogs who'd been presented to the vet school at Glasgow, very good vet school. And, what they did, and these were dogs who were presented, they could be presented for anything, for a broken leg, for a brain tumor, for, dying of old age. It could be absolutely anything. Okay. It wasn't for pancreatitis. And they got the owner's permission to look at the pancreas just to have a look see, just to see what was happening. And, so these were dogs who were, to all intents and purposes, healthy, and they died of something else. Okay. The incidence of pancreatitis with these guys was 25%. 50 of those dogs out of a section of 200 had some, either minor or major signs of pancreatitis. And
so were they looking at this with ultrasound or with lab work or both?
No, this was post-mortem.
Oh, post-mortem.
Yeah. This was, these were cases from practitioners in the area around the Glasgow Vet School, and they sent these cases in for everything, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Okay, so these are dogs just died, and they didn't know why they died, and so they examined them, and they found 50 of these dogs had signs of pancreatitis. And if you looked at the old dog population within those dogs, some were young, some were old. And if you just looked at the old dogs, it went up to 34%. So that means that when you walk down the high street at home with you, Judy, it's possible that 1 in 4 dogs is walking around with low-grade chronic pancreatitis. Now, pancreatitis, I'll just give you a little introduction. Pancreas is the organ. It's a beautiful it looks a bit like a dog's tongue. If you've got a long-nosed dog, they've got this big, long, beautiful tongue. And if you kind of flesh that out, that's what your pancreas looks like in your dog. Big dogs, big pancreas, small dogs, small pancreas. And it lies between your stomach and your duodenum. It just kind of tucked in there. It's really very, very delicate, which is why it doesn't like any inflammation. Right. In humans, acute pancreatitis is super painful. They rank it with breaking a leg really badly, or with, bad childbirth. Yeah. It's way up there for acute pancreatitis. Let's just talk about acute and chronic pancreatitis. Acute pancreatitis is a flare. Yeah. You're on your back. It's really terrible and you can hardly move. Chronic pancreatitis, on the other hand, these are the dogs who they're a bit unwell. They're doing the bowing position. What do you call that in the States when they put their bum in the air and they
it's the bowing position.
It's a bowing.
Praying, bowing. Yeah.
Praying mantis position like this. Okay. Now, my dogs do that when they're pleased to see me, and it's kind of, hello, Dad, please take us for a walk. And they'll do a bow to say, come on, get on with it. Let's go for a walk. Okay. That's normal. But if you've got a dog who's a bit like this and does a lot of the praying mantis, the bowing position for no good reason, you've got to think, maybe we've got abdominal pain. Obviously, there's a dozen reasons why you could have abdominal pain. But when you're presented with that, especially if they've got sensitivity, if you feel in the abdomen, especially at the front of the abdomen, which is where we find the pancreas on the left-hand side mainly. But if it's sore, you'll get reaction there. Just go in gently to start with. Please go in gently to start with. So if you get that, and sometimes, quite frequently, you'll get vomiting. Now, obviously, there's a dozen reasons why. A dozen. Is that okay if I say a dozen? Yeah. A dozen is common language in the UK. It means 12. Why we talk about 12, I do not know. What's wrong with 10? What's wrong with 20? But there's many reasons why dogs can get vomiting. But if you get this picture of dog's not quite right, and there's a bit of vomiting, don't understand why, and we've got this praying, then I think we need to think about pancreatitis, and the vets can do what they call a snap test, a simple test in the vet practice.
Do you think that test is accurate?
No, but it's
Okay.
but it gets you somewhere. If it's negative, then you might go, okay, well, let's see how we go. But if it's positive, then you do the CPLI, which is the gold standard, which is the laboratory test. And if you're high on that, then you have got pancreatitis. It's pretty certain you've got pancreatitis. However, I see dogs, and I'll ask you about this. I see dogs with CPLIs of 300, 400, and it should be under like 125 or so. They've got really high, well, moderately high, and they're absolutely fine. They're jumping about.
See it all the time.
Yeah.
I see it all the time, frankly, on my own dogs. And I find it, first of all, we know that the normals on those tests are based on kibble-fed dogs.
They are, sadly.
Particularly on the raw-fed dogs, and particularly raw-fed dogs who are eating a lot of beef or a really high-fat meal, the CPLI will come back high. And if they're perfectly normal and everything's fine, like a lot of my dogs, I ignore it because I'm like, what's it mean?
And completely. Yeah. So, but when you've got dog is not right, but I can't put my finger on it. You've got bowing, you've got a bit of vomiting, and you've got a CPLI. You're probably in pancreatitis territory. And therefore you need to talk to your vet about treatment for pancreatitis. Okay. And we can maybe talk about that at the end, or we can talk about it now if you like.
Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm really glad that you're not shy to jump in and just say, what do you think about this? That's really good, because it means it's more of a conversation than me just giving a lecture, which is really boring. So Penny Watson, 25% of all dogs are just from a random selection. So that means that you guys who are watching this, if you're walking down the high street, 1 in 4 dogs that pass you may have low-grade chronic pancreatitis, which is dramatic. Okay. And in the older population, it's 1/3 of those dogs. It's 1 in 3. Amazing. So there was another paper in 2004 by George Steiner, who is kind of the god of pancreas and pancreatitis. And he found 74%, but he was just looking at pancreas, and he was looking at pancreas that had been handed to him for examination because they weren't looking quite right. Okay, so that was 74%. So I think that it's much more realistic to say that it's possible that a quarter of dogs have got some degree of pancreatic damage, and they are on the verge of having problems, and 34% in older dogs, which is, I thought was just, staggering. When you look at the literature, it says kind of between 1% and 2%. And I think that's, have you seen that? Yeah, it's like,
Well, based on the number of complaints I see on social media and in my inbox, it's a lot higher than 1% to 2%, I would say.
You'd have thought so. But then, look at the literature. You do a Google, or guys watching this, do a Google on incidence of chronic pancreatitis in dogs, and you'll see between about 0.5 and 1.5 or 2%. Okay. Wow. I think that's woefully underestimating it. Okay. Which is a shame, because they need a painkiller, obviously. We usually use paracetamol, but, we can really help these guys. We use herbs, we use herbal anti-inflammatories, we use herbs to strengthen the pancreas, we will use homeopathics to strengthen the pancreas, we will use strategies to help with IBD, because I think IBD and hepatitis both key into this, because your gut runs past the pancreas, and if it's upset, often the pancreas will come in sympathetically, because of the degree of inflammation. If your liver is upset, because the liver exits into the duodenum pretty close to to where the pancreas exits into, and so if the liver is unhappy, I think you can get some kind this communication. In cats, they used to call it triaditis, where you get pancreatitis, you get hepatitis. Hepatitis is liver unhappy, inflamed, and you get enteritis, where the gut is unhappy and inflamed.
I think that a lot of cases of elevated liver enzymes, we are ignoring the chronic smoldering pancreatitis, that, you've got inflammation in that area and that overspill. And so pancreatic enzymes might look normal. But I mean, interestingly, the latest diagnostic article I read on pancreatitis stated that ultrasound will give you a good idea whether there is chronic or acute inflammation with the pancreas, but the gold standard and only way to know for sure that your pet has pancreatitis is biopsy. Now, who the heck is going to take their sick dog and put it under anesthesia and get a biopsy of the pancreas? I mean, that to say that that's how we need to diagnose it is over the top crazy.
That will be a pathologist who's never opened a pancreatic dog in their lives, her lives. Okay, so technically they're absolutely correct. The best way to diagnose.
Yeah, but
disease,
it's not a diagnostic test anybody's going to use.
Let's face it, the best way to diagnose disease is post-mortem, but usually people are not very keen on that. Post-mortem is when an autopsy, you guys would say autopsy. Okay. You're going to get to the bottom of most disease if you do an autopsy, but they're fairly difficult to treat if you do that. Okay. So, and the more dramatic
yay, we got a diagnosis.
Yay, we got a diagnosis. Oh yeah, I forgot autopsy. Yeah, it's a one-way street. Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what, this is an interesting, and this is off topic, but why not? ALT, alanine aminotransferase, ALT. We're seeing a wave of that just over the last 3 years where ALT is raised, dog is fine, like totally fine, but the ALT is raised. Have you seen any of these cases in dogs?
Well, we had a humongous pet food recall for aflatoxins last year. So when I'm seeing these, the dogs seem, or the cats seem normal and the ALTs are up, the first thing of course I always ask, what are they eating? And if they are eating a food that has grains or legumes in it, I'm always on the aflatoxin train until we prove otherwise.
Yeah, but Judy, I think just looking at the stats, I think all high kibble, all kibbles, but all high legume, high grain food, which is most food that isn't a well-made raw food, is going to have aflatoxin. It's just a question of how much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that is one contributor that we see for sure. And then the other one that I think is a huge contributor is copper storage disease. And that's because AFCO has a minimum for the amount of copper, but there's no maximum. And so the minimum is 7, and we've got foods that are testing at 40. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's a little extra copper.
Okay. Yeah, but they make great batteries. These dogs.
Yeah, great.
if their liver is half copper, you can just plug them in and charge the car. Great. I'm joking.
So yeah, I think it for me. Yeah. Those elevated ALTs, we always have to look at the diet, and 9 times out of 10, I think that's going to be our biggest contributing factor. Now, certainly environmental toxins, or what that heck are we putting in these animals as far as pesticides in or on them as far as pesticides. And so when we start looking at all the things that they're exposed to, it's like, oh, gee, why are we seeing high liver enzymes? No clue. Yeah.
But you know what? I completely agree with that. And that would fit with most dogs in Europe and most dogs in the USA. But I'm seeing squeaky clean, beautifully fed dogs, and they've still got a raised ALT. And that makes me think, wow, what's happening here? So therefore it must be environmental toxins, because in the environment in Europe, we've got glyphosate. Yeah. You guys
glyphosate, and you have a huge fipronil problem in the water.
Totally. Okay. So therefore it makes sense. And we got microplastics, and we got, all sorts of these. Yeah. It's a dirty world. It's a dirty world we live in. Okay. So, like I say, it's kind of surprising that we don't see more pancreatitis or more hepatitis. Yeah. And that is because humans and our pets, we're very resilient. Humans have been, as Homo sapiens, we've been around for 3 million years. And before that, millions and millions of years. And the reason we're here, we're like the Rolling Stones. We just kind of keep going. And so because we we are able to evolve and to, cope with insults, toxic insults, with, changing climate, with all these things. We are adaptable. Yeah. You get human beings from the Inuit in northern Canada to the Bushmen of the Kalahari and everything in between. Yeah. And dogs are in those environments as well. So and that's why we love each other so much, because we're super adaptable and we keep each other company. Yeah. Hunting, keeping you warm at night when you're in the Arctic, all this stuff. That's why this bond has been so valuable over the years. How long have dogs been with us? I'd say maybe 200,000 years or so. I wouldn't say, possibly 200,000 years. Really, really valuable. There's one, and this is really off topic, but that's kind of how we roll, don't we? So there's one theory that back in the old days, we had a face structure that was really quite flat. Okay. And then we began to live with dogs. They came around because they get, easy food and what have you. And we would get somebody to hunt with. And because they have these incredible noses, it allowed us to increase brain size, which allowed us to reduce the size of our nose. We've got a tiny little nose now. And that's because dogs did all the smelling on the hunt. How cool is that? How cool is that? Yeah. So to a certain extent, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our dogs, possibly. Interesting stuff. Okay, let's move on with pancreatitis. So many causes. And so I'm just going to go through from the really common causes of pancreatitis. Why are we seeing 1 in 3, 1 in 4 dogs with pancreatitis? And for me, one of the real biggies is obesity, overweight and obesity, because in the old days, we used to think, a bit of fat is not a terrible thing. And that's absolutely correct. If you've got appropriate body fat, then it's going to be doing a little job and it's very, very valuable. And then, if you're ill for several days, it's your energy source. But nowadays, in the UK, there's a 2017 paper by Dr. Alex German, and he said 74% of dogs in the UK are obese or overweight. And that was 2017. We're now 2023. So I would say that's probably up to about 80%. And when I go out into the town and things like that, that's about right. It's about 8 out of 10 dogs are bigger or substantially bigger than they ought to be. And modern endocrinology is the study of hormones, and they say that actually fat is not just a great place to store fat. It's actually chock-a-block with hormones. It's very, very, very hormonally active. And the more of it you have, the more you have this tsunami of hormones that shouldn't really be there, because you should have, low appropriate levels of body fat. If you've got loads, you're going to have this tsunami. And that will contribute to this kind of general inflammatory syndrome. Yeah. Because you've got hormones buzzing around your body that you oughtn't to have. And and when everything becomes inflamed, then you get itis. Yeah. You're doing itis this month, I think. Judy.
Itis week.
This week. Okay. So it's itis. So I think that this endocrinologically active fat deposits, they're going to be making everything go itis. Yeah. So that's really, 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 really big. The other thing which is really interesting, and it's counterintuitive, is that if you get 20 dogs and you feed them a low fat kibble, okay, so just a regular low fat kibble, even the very good quality, I don't think kibble is a great thing, but we'll call it good quality, low fat kibble. And you compare those with a regular raw fed, 20 raw fed dogs, and they're going to have a much higher fat concentration within their blood. I'm just going to ask the question to everybody watching. Of those populations, on this side, we've got the low fat kibble. And on this side, we've got the higher fat raw dogs. Which of those two populations do you think will have the highest blood fat, the highest blood triglyceride, if you want to get technical? Okay. And the answer is, you probably could have guessed, because otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. The kibble bunch have higher blood fat, even though they are on a low fat diet. And that is counterintuitive to most vets and definitely most people. It's like, you eat low fat, you're going to have low fat in the blood. You eat high fat, but that's not the case.
And what happens with the traditional veterinarians, they're like, oh, we need a lower fat diet. So these poor dogs who have already been put on a 9% fat are now going down to a 6% fat. And then I get people emailing, I need a no fat diet. I'm like, really? Do you want your animal to die? Because fats are kind of important.
Yeah. I mean, here we go. We're going off topic again. The human body produces more cholesterol probably than you can eat in a day. It produces more cholesterol in a day than you can eat. Okay. So that whole cholesterol argument that we've been it's been, if the American Medical Association in 1977 said, right, yeah, we've got to have low fat food. Okay. And then obesity rates and diabetes rates went like this. Okay. It's a complete fallacy. Yeah. Fats are good. Butter is good. You cook your steak in fat, eat as much olive oil as you possibly can. It's all very, very good. And it reflects onto our dogs. Feeding dogs a great, healthy, raw food diet. You're going to be feeding some fantastic, really good, honest fats, which are then made into hormones. They are made into really good quality skin, he says, looking at his rough beard. And I've gone out of focus. There you go. That's better. There you go. Yeah. If you want a healthy skin, you've got to eat healthy fat. So we've got an epidemic of overweight and obese dogs in Europe and the United States. And that is going to have a massive push towards inflammation, which is going to have a massive push towards pancreatitis and every other itis that you're going to be talking about this week. There's also these things called advanced glycation end products, which is very simply speaking, you get protein, you get sugars. Yeah, so protein you have in kibble, sugars you have in kibble because starch breaks down to sugar. You put them together, you get these things called advanced glycation end products, which is a posh way of saying, if you take the acronym for that, it's AGE. They make you age. They are pro-oxidation. Okay. So it's like, I'm going to eat this food and it's going to make me age. I'm going to be in my grave earlier than I would otherwise be. That's how that one works. And how do you get in your grave? Answer: inflammation. Now, inflammation is the enemy. Yeah. Prolonged inflammation, short-term inflammation, really healthy. Prolonged inflammation is the enemy of great health. Okay. I've got to give praise where praise is due. You've got an MD over there called Chris Kenobe, Knobbe. Yeah, so it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, that's how you remember it. He's called Chris Kenobe, and I saw him on YouTube recently. I was just trawling through. I watch a lot of medical stuff, nutrition stuff. And this guy has done a really deep dive on omega-6 fatty acids. Okay. So everybody knows that you need almost as much omega-3 as you've got omega-6. But what he's saying, and he's actually done the biochemistry, he's saying that if your omega-6 is high, then it's almost irrelevant how much omega-3. Well, you need to have more and more and more and more omega-3, but the ratio can be really nice and low and you've got a good ratio, or you can have stonking amounts of omega-6 and your omega-3s are trying to get up here. But because unfortunately SAD, standard American diet, and when the standard European diet is going in the same direction, so if you look at the Bushmen of the Kalahari, they've got about 1% omega-6 in their diet, okay, 1.5%, okay, and that's really healthy because you get inflammation, you get lack of inflammation, super healthy. Right. And you look at all these groups around the world, and it's about there. In the States, because that's where he's done the work, you're up to 15% omega-6. So it's not just about the ratio, although that is important. It's if you're eating loads of omega-6, and that is a lot of processed food, okay? And in the doggy world, processed food equals tins and cans and kibble. That's how it works,
right.
Okay? So be very careful if you are feeding these ultra processed foods to your dogs, because they are very pro-oxidant, they're very high in omega-6, and they are going to be pushing every organ in your body, your heart, your kidney, your liver, your skin, everything, into an itis state, into this inflamed state. And so, like I say, I'm surprised it's only 25% of dogs have got pancreatitis. I'm surprised it's not like 99%, because so many dogs, 80% of dogs will eat ultra-processed food in Europe, and I imagine it's the same in the States. Is that right?
You know, it used to be 95%, but I think it has dropped. I think that the kibble, and this is why we're getting so much pushback from the big pet food companies, because the kibble market is decreasing and the raw market is increasing. And I've seen some questionnaires that have been sent out. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the people that are answering the questionnaires happen to be the people who are more on board with this movement. For sure. So I think if we stood in front of your average big box store and did a survey, we'd get a different answer.
Yeah, for sure. So but it means we're making ground. I was speaking to Magnus Pettersson, who's a big producer in Finland, and he has his figures get up even beyond, maybe up to even 25% in Europe, in Northern Europe, because they're pretty sensible up there. The Scandis, the Finns, and what have you. They tend to lead the world in welfare in animals with nutrition. They're a bright bunch, and they're up to maybe even 25% of dogs are eating all or some raw. Okay, and awesome. I mean, the thing about raw is it sells itself. You and I can talk about raw until we're blue in the face, but actually, Mrs. Jones goes down to the store and she gets some really well-made raw food, and she tries it for a couple of weeks because all her friends are raving about it. And she can see for herself, because her dog loves it. Her dog is cleaner. They're less smelly. They're less farty. They're less scratchy. The teeth improve. And so there is no cell needed with the raw food diet. And
once they try, the only complaint I get from people is cost, but then you look at it and say, well, my veterinary bills just dropped dramatically.
Yeah. Connor's stats,
where do you want to spend your money?
Connor's stats say your vet bills are going to drop by 82%. 82% less vet bills. Yeah. And
and since we have a veterinary shortage, needing your veterinary less is going to be a good thing.
Well, it's going to be essential, isn't it? If you have to drive out of state to go and just go and see a vet, then you're going to thank God that you are feeding raw food, because you need to see the vet less. Exactly. Don't believe me. Don't believe Dr. Judy. Talk to any of your friends who are feeding raw food. They see the vet less. That's the bottom line. Yeah. Don't believe me. I'm a vet. Talk to them. That's for sure. Okay. So there you go. The punchline there, Judy, is, obesity will very much push you in the wrong direction. And ultra processed food is very much part of that. And the reason is that the kibble and the cans, they tend to be high in legumes and especially in grains, which bumps up your insulin, which is pro-inflammatory and will contribute enormously to obesity. Interesting. Chris Kenobi, the Obi-Wan Kenobi doctor, Chris Kenobi, he says, actually, it's the excess of omega-6, which he can directly link to insulin resistance. Yeah, and that's
Interesting.
going to contribute to obesity. It's going to contribute to diabetes and what have you. So high starch food, bad idea. Raw food, i.e., zero grain starch, that's the place to be. Okay, because that's what we've been eating
Yep.
for millions of years. That's the bottom line. Also, if you
For
eat
sure.
ultra processed food, and there's an amazing book by a Brit called Chris Van Tulleken. You can get it on Amazon, and you'll never spell his name, but it's called Ultra Processed People. Grab a copy of Ultra Processed People, and you'll never go to McDonald's again. Seriously, it's an absolute, or you'll never go to the supermarket again. It's an absolute game changer. Okay, even obviously everybody has to go to the supermarket because you can't go and hunt animals in the park, but he beautifully puts the argument, and he's really rigorous with his research. So Chris Van Tulleken, Ultra Processed People, and the reason is we can learn a lot for ourselves. Okay, we've got to eat a lot less ultra processed food, but the industry, the food industry, the billion dollar food industry, they're saying you got to feed lots of kibble. Just like the smoking industry in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Exactly.
Cigarettes, yeah, listen, they're okay. The doctors,
No
they're just being fussy. It's okay. Smoke up. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. If you're 16, that's the time to start. Off you go. Okay. That's what's happening right now in the food industry. The big food giants with the Mars, the Nestle, the Colgate Palmolive, they're making squillions of dollars, and they want to sell product. Okay. They don't care about your dog. I do. Judy does. Okay. And this is so simple. Dogs have been eating raw food for 45 million years. Humans have been eating it for 3, 6, 9 million years. Okay. And the less we eat of it, the less we eat of quality, well-produced food, fresh food, the sicker we get. Yeah. So there we go. Sorry, I'm on a rant here. So high starch, bad idea. There's a really nice study by Algaya at the University of Illinois, 2019, and she says that she's kind of done the study on the high triglycerides and says high starch, high triglycerides because of insulin. Insulin's the enemy. You need to keep your insulin down. You need to keep your dog's insulin down, and it's really easy. You just say starch, no thanks. That's how you do it. Okay. So these ultra processed diet, they're very allergenic. Yeah, they go in, the body sees them as foreign, it can't recognize them. You're not food because I just don't recognize because you've been ultra heated, and then you've been sitting on somebody's shelf for 6 months, and now you're coming into the gut, and I don't recognize you. Therefore, I'm going to
with
react.
all the synthetic vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lovely paper out of Helsinki University who are doing a lot of work in this. Vuori, and she's saying exposure to ultra processed food, kibble and cans in the early life of the pup is very much correlated with IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, enteritis later in life. Okay, so early kibble, later IBD, which is a real crime, I think. So there's a lot to talk about, but guys, you can walk away from this interview right now, because the bottom line is raw food is really super healthy, and it's going to protect you in a dozen different ways from going in the direction of pancreatitis. I do see raw fed dogs who do get pancreatitis, but it's much more rare. Okay, so pharmaceuticals. You guys are even worse with pharmaceuticals than we are. Okay, you love your pharmaceutical. I'm not just talking about the vets. I'm talking about the medics. In fact, the medics are even worse than the vets.
Everybody.
Okay, yeah, for sure. It's just everybody's like, yeah, what could possibly go wrong? But actually, pharmaceutical
have a pill, it'll fix it.
Yeah, a pill for every ill. I don't think so. the pill for every ill is called great food. Yeah. You're not going to live forever, but
exactly.
you will enjoy the journey a whole lot more eating great food, and your dog will be the same. You'll enjoy the journey a whole lot more. So did you know, Judy?
Absolutely.
In the human world, they've notched up 120 drugs which are associated with chronic pancreatitis. Okay. And I looked through the list. And, yeah, I know. I mean, it's not a surprise, but the ones on the list that we use also within veterinary medicine, codeine and nalopril, which is a heart medication, furosemide, commonly known as frusemide, which is heart for as a diuretic, metronidazole. Metronidazole is used like Smarties. Do you have Smarties over there? You do. You have
we
Smarties.
Do, and we also use metronidazole like Smarties. Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
And I think
horrible.
It does have its place. I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm saying think really carefully and try some clever medicine, try some dietary medicine before you even think about metronidazole, because it is associated with pancreatitis. Also, omeprazole.
And a million other things.
talking of Smarties, white Smarties, omeprazole. Okay. It's used ubiquitously. You know, it's like, take this while I just see while I have a think about the case kind of thing. Okay. I'm doing them a disservice. Vets do their very best to do the best for your dog. I absolutely promise you, they are not knowingly doing anything wrong. But the way of the world is such that if your dog vomits a little bit, they're going to be thinking omeprazole, because that's how they're trained. That's how the ethos within the veterinary profession. Okay, they're not doing wrong. It's just they're doing what they're trained. So omeprazole is overrepresented with our poor dogs, unfortunately. Also, tetracyclines. Remember tetracyclines, Judy? Yeah, we used to use them. They were great, and now they don't work very well.
Oh, sulfur drugs, tetracyclines, chloramphenicol. Those were the top three. You know,
those were the days. Those were the days.
Yeah, those were the days. Well, frankly, we only had about 4 antibiotics to pick from. So
it's like television, isn't it? Back in the old day, in the UK, we had 4 channels. Yeah, when I was a kid, we had 4 channels.
Yeah,
and now you can't count them.
Yeah.
Okay, so. So it's a big deal. Chronic pancreatitis. I don't even know what the stats for chronic long-term pancreatitis are, but it's a big deal. And
I think if we did that same thing where we did autopsies or postmortems on cats that died of whatever and looked, I think the cat population has a lot higher concentration of chronic pancreatitis. I think that it is smoldering in so many cats, and cats go to the veterinarian a lot less often. They're much better at hiding what's going on. Cats tend to be finicky, so if they miss a meal, we're like, meh. I think that if we were just looking at pathology, I think it would be even higher.
I think so. But you know what? It's a really, really easy study to do. You just say to the local, where's the vet school close to you? North Carolina State. So you just say to the pathologist there, listen, guys, we're doing a study. Please get permission to take the pancreas of the next 200, 300, 400 cats and pass them to the histology department so that we can have a look. Boom. 4 weeks later, you're going to have a study. Yeah, it's super easy, costs nothing, and I'd love to see the results.
Yeah, because they're already doing it.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Oh man, Nick, we could talk about this all.
Judy, I've only just started. Okay, so if you've got to run, that's absolutely fine. Seriously, I've got another 7 pages of this stuff to go. But
holy cow.
No, listen, I've only just started.
All right. Maybe we're gonna have you do a course on pancreatitis.
I'd love to. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm gonna give you a 5-minute quick wrap up.
I've got a really great story.
How much of that can you
this is a great story, and then I'll shut up. I promise. I will go and leave you for at least a week. Okay. If you want to do more on pancreatitis, give me a shout. I'm really happy to go there. Okay.
Okay.
So I can't believe it. Like we're 49 minutes down.
I know.
Amazing. Apologies, because there's loads of really, really interesting stuff. But
I know. And this has been great.
so last story. Okay, so we've got Whippet Italian Greyhounds, Mouse and Bluebell, beautiful girls. They just a joy, light of my life, etc. And therefore, we know everybody with a sight hound within 5 miles of here. Okay, because that's how people work. And
yeah, I know all the Cavalier owners.
Yeah, exactly. So up the road from here, about as the crow flies, there's a lovely guy called Dave and his wife Alex, and they have two whippets, slightly bigger versions, and they and one of these guys is called Amos. And Dave rang me one day and said, I think Amos has got pancreatitis. Okay. And I said, why? And he said, yeah, bowing and bit of vomit and what have you. I said, okay, tell me about what may have happened. Have you changed the diet? He's on raw. And he said, well, actually, it's a funny thing. Every time this friend of ours, occasionally, only once, twice a year, comes to visit, Amos shows signs of pancreatitis. Okay. Now this is good because I was going to talk to you about stress and pancreatitis, but every time this guy comes, Amos, and it's because his brother Louis, this guy really loves Louis and spends a lot of time with Louis. And so therefore Amos's nose is out of joint. That is to say he's jealous.
Aww.
Okay. And the homeopaths say, that all really, even the Chinese will say, any emotion in excess, even joy in excess, will push you into a pathological state. And so what we think is happening, and it's happened several times now, and now we're wary of it, and we've been treating him so he's much more robust, is so he was super jealous and super upset, maybe resentful, maybe who knows, but he was on the wrong side of the tracks, and he got the pancreatitis. So we treated him for pancreatitis. We gave him probiotics and we gave him herbal anti-inflammatories, and we gave him a low fat diet initially, and then we rehabilitated him to a normal fat diet, and he's doing great. And he's never had pancreatitis since. And the friend can come to visit and it's okay now. But it was cut and dried. And I was absolutely amazed at that. And I tell people about that because they'll say, oh, my dog's got pancreatitis. And the vet says it's because they're having too much fat. And I say, let me tell you a story. Okay.
Well, and it is so true because I see, animals who are put on the prescription low fat, unfortunately, it's usually kibble. So we haven't gotten rid of the starches. We haven't gotten rid of the pro-inflammatory process in general. But, 2 or 3 times a year with zero diet changes, nothing else going on, these animals will go through another flare. And it's like, okay, well, what else is going on at that time? And you're so right, because, a lot of the colitis cases that people present to me, it's like, well, what happened in the last week or two? Did you go away? Did somebody come to visit? Was there a fight in the house? Was there a stress? New animal, whatever. And 9 times out of 10, there is some stress component that is what puts them over the edge. So, and I think we don't talk about that enough. We don't address that enough. Emotional well-being of our pets is way up here, and we kind of, park it at the bottom.
Yeah, for sure. But the fact that we're having this conversation, these are good stories, and it just brings it up into the open, because you can't see something unless you think it. Yeah, that's a really good adage we had at college. It's like, unless you think it, you're not going to see it. So which is really, really great. Exactly. So now you can think it's like, oh yeah. And when you say that to people, they will often say, oh yeah, it's, we went away for the weekend or something,
Well, and that's how we diagnose dogs with Addison's disease, because they can't take any changes, any stress, and their adrenal can't keep up. And it's like, oh, look, we have vomiting and diarrhea. Wonder how that happened. And when I was much younger in practice, that frankly was how I was diagnosing the Addisonians. It's like, oh, he can't get to the mailbox without having to sit and rest on the way. It's a young dog. It's like, Oh,
Yes.
and then we have diarrhea. So, so many things that we don't think about that can contribute to this. Nick,
Yes,
you're amazing. I can't wait to see you at the big event, October 12th and 13th of 24. Nick is one of our speakers. You will all be blown away because he's a wealth of information. And Connor is coming too. So Nick and Connor together are just kind of a bunch of fun.
Judy, we're going to have a hoot. I can't wait to see you, hug you, see the family, and to meet all you guys who are watching. This is what come and see us, tell us your stories, teach us. I love these get-togethers because actually, don't tell anyone, but actually I learn more from them than I actually give. So I'm going to give you loads of stuff. If you can give me loads of stuff, it's going to be wonderful. We're just going to bathe in healing and love, and we're going to have a great time. So thank you very much for the invite. We're going to have a superb time. What are the dates again?
Can't wait. October 12th and 13th, I believe. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The event is actually Saturday, Sunday, but all the speakers, we're all going to get together on Friday night. And have a
guys,
blast.
come along. It's going to be a hoot. It's going to be fantastic.
It will. All right. Until next time, everyone, think about itis.
That's where it's at.
And
Great
Nick,
to see you.
thank you
Thank
very
you, Judy.
much.
See you soon.